What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Mode Studios, where every week I share new top real estate agent and entrepreneur interviews, along with tips that I'm personally doing inside my business that have allowed me to become one of the top real estate agents and team leaders on the planet. Check us out at gsdmode.com, where you can see more free, great content, tips, interviews, resources, trainings, and more that will help you massively grow your real estate business. Also, make sure to check out my personal mentorship coaching program at 90daymastery.com. This is for those of you wanting to create a truly successful real estate business that pays you the money you want, as well as gives you the time and freedom to live a life worth living. This is hands down the best, most effective, and most affordable real estate coaching program that exists out there. Thank you so much for all of your support. Now, let's dive on into today's content. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview, where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and straight up top badasses that they're dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out and create big, epic, amazing lives for themselves, their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, guys, got another rock star, amazing guest on the show. So our guest today, guys, has had now 3 straight years of netting over $1 million yearly in gross commissions inside his real estate business. Has been in the real estate business for just over 15 years. Has been voted 2 times now the best realtor in Dallas, and a dude that's just doing some big, amazing, epic things. So really excited and honored to have Chris Bentley on the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm now up to 3 now, 3 years in a row. So
3 years.
Yeah. It's tough. 3 years in a row I think it's really tough to three-peat personally. But yeah, I kind of want to make myself over ego, but yeah, it's really cool.
That's awesome, man. Well, especially in an area like Dallas. You know, we were just talking before we hit the record button. I was just there for the first time. I've been to Fort Worth a few times, but never to actual, in the city of Dallas and downtown there. And dude, the growth is so insane. Yeah. I got to imagine it's pretty saturated with realtors and the growth and a lot of competition there, man. So commend you, dude. That's amazing, dude. So before we get into what you're doing today, because obviously you're doing a lot of big, epic, great things. But I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them down this path in the first place. I know you've been in this business now for about 15 years, but why real estate? How'd all this begin?
Well, I'm a natural-born entrepreneur. So my dad was a second-generation immigrant to this country from Greece. My mom, I think, is like a third generation. So I was the kid that was always like hustling. I'd sell blow pops at school. I would wash cars. I would, rake leaves. I grew up on the East Coast, so we had different, changes in the weather, not like Dallas. But yeah, like I just started out doing that, and then one thing led to another. I was doing financial services at the time, so I was selling life insurance and annuity products, and then somebody turned me on to a guy that was just killing it in real estate, and he still is. He's still out there, and I just followed him and became a mentor, or he became a mentor to me, and I just kind of gave up a lot of commission to learn what he did. So I would jump in the car with him and go on appointments. I listened to him talk on the phone to my clients. I gave him a list of people to call, and that really got me going because I didn't need him after a while, and I could just do it myself. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, so many people get too short-sighted, thinking, like you mentioned, I had to give up a lot of commissions. But it's like the great Jim Rohn said, he's like, never ask how much I'm going to get paid or what am I going to get out of this. Always ask, whom are you becoming from this?
Right.
I mean, do you feel a lot of your success today is because you started out in the right way under that mentor and learned those solid foundations from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I was 27, at the time. I lived outside of my house like once. I lived at my home for a long period of time because I was going through school. So I had no idea how to sell a house. I never even lived in a house outside of my own. So it was just really difficult for me to comprehend. And then he showed it to me, and I was like, oh, now I get it. And now I understand. So yeah, absolutely. I learned a lot from him.
So then those that maybe have, a mentor, whether it's they join a team and their mentor is the team leader or whatever the situation is, because that is also tough to break away, right? Cause you feel like you owe so much to that person. And I had to leave my mentor after 9 years, and it's one of the hardest business decisions I ever had to make, but it was time, right? What kind of advice or recommendations would you give for those that are watching and listening? Like, when to know it's time to go on your own? Because some people do it prematurely when they're not ready. They don't truly understand. They haven't learned it all yet, right? But like what point did you know? And I don't know if there's regrets at maybe at the timing, or like, what did you learn from that, and what advice would you give?
I'm actually going through that right now. Like I'm going to go get my broker's license. It's just when you feel that you don't need that other person anymore and you can handle 99.9% of the stuff that comes through, you really don't need that person. I mean, there's that fear factor of like not having that umbrella or that person to go to. But like, for instance, I have a person under me that I'm training, and by me training that person, I learned so much about how much I know personally, because I'm like, oh man, like how did that come out of my mouth? Like I just know that right out the gate. So it's real interesting that you do it. And for me, when I was under him, I was just doing deals and I didn't need him except for maybe like a small question here or there. And a lot of those questions now, the power of the internet, you can just look them up or you can call, the commission, stuff like that. So you just know.
Yeah. Are there any things that you wish though you would have learned more before you made the shift? Like an example, because I know today you're a team leader. When I started my team, I realized really quickly that my success of being a realtor really had nothing to do with my success of being a team leader, right? At all.
Right.
Because now you're being your own HR person, you're having to master the hiring process and all this stuff. And even with my team today, I mean, I have nobody that ever comes in with my agents and asks me, just back end operation questions. I mean, were you, but you also grew up in an entrepreneur family, so maybe you were dialed in there. But were there any things that kind of shocked you and surprised you, or that you had struggles with during that transition when you went on your own and started growing your own team?
The biggest thing I just had was just fear, the fear of, hey, I'm going to get into the situation and I have nobody to talk to, or I'm going to get, a question that I can't ask, or somebody's going to say something negatively and I can't, shoulder it on or blame it on somebody else. Like there was always that like, what if question. And like, I never really had that. Now it's more of putting out fires. Like, hey, I did this and now there's this question. Like, how do I solve it? Hey, like, I have this problem with this person. Like, how do I get over the hump with that? Just a lot of those kind of problems. And now it's more of just a day-to-day operation of, hey, I got this problem. Like, how do I fix it? And let's rock and roll to the next deal.
Yep. Love it, man. So, in the talking points, one of the things, and it really intrigued me, which is not letting failure stop you. And everybody sees the success and the accolades. They've seen you Dallas top realtor now 3 years in a row. And, they see all the fruits today, but they didn't see all those struggles, and that's the stuff, like, that's like the iceberg image, all the crap below that other people don't see, so, can you just kind of talk to us? Cause a lot of our listeners, well, I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know, but I'm guessing that there's a big percentage out there that are going through a tough time, and at different stages of our business, we all experience that hardship. Can you just give some examples of some of the tougher times that you've had, the bigger obstacles that you've had, and what you've done to keep pushing and stay in the game and keep your head up?
Well, I moved here and I only knew one person, which I was living with, and that one person I knew her friends at the time. So maybe I knew about 5 people total in Dallas. Had, nobody to really sell to. Nobody knew who I was. In case, a lot of people don't know, Dallas is very much like a boys club. A lot of people grew up here, they play football together or whatever. Like, it's hard to get business from other people that if you're not in that circle. So then I had to go like network. I had to go shake a lot of people's hands. I had to go to a lot of different stuff. I did a lot of stuff on social media to push my brand. And that was difficult. I got started most recently, probably a year and a half ago, with a company that promised me a bunch of leads, and it was going great in the beginning. So then I doubled up and tripled up, and then, the lead stopped. And what I found out was that Google delisted them. So they weren't showing up on the search feed. I paid a long-term contract, so then I was stuck. So every single month I was hemorrhaging money. And, at the time I was trying to be a baller. So I rented or I leased out a BMW. And I got to probably the last month, every single month I was borrowing money from people. The last month was like a make or break, and I had to either get a job and try to work 2 or 3 jobs, which I did, to try to float me because I was way over. The overhead was killing me, or I just had to live in my car, which I wasn't gonna do. So I mean, it's just there's a lot of struggle, a lot of stuff that I'm not going to talk about, or people ask me about, I will, like shows like this and different stuff personally. But a lot of people just think that like I moved to Dallas and then I propped a tent up and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, like I got deals coming in and, I'm in magazines and I'm on podcasts, it's not that way at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I think what's really important, and I hope that people picked up on that, because he said it was a year and a half ago. So that's like 13 years in the business, right? A lot of agents might think, oh, my first few years of the struggle, but dude, at every stage there's struggle, and I went through something very similar too, is with when Zillow used to charge per impressions,
Right.
Right. And my cost per lead at that time was like $17, and I was like 16 grand a month deep, right. And they switched overnight to charging they used to get charged per click. Then they switched to impressions, which shot my leads up to over $40 a lead. Right. And when that happened, I mean, it devastated my business, right. And you just have to shift to, reinvent yourself, go through that pain, and it always makes you better. But, some of those things you just can't anticipate. You're tracking, you're doing everything right, but you can't predict if they're going to get delisted from Google, like your situation.
It's just tough. I mean, you can't anticipate any of that stuff in the business. I mean, they could come in and say, hey, look, we're not going to charge 3% anymore. We're only going to charge 1%. I mean, how many people would go, out of business from that? So it just changes. Stuff changes, and you have to adapt, and that's the tough part sometimes.
How do you mentally stay in the game though during those times? Because when you're like, all right, dude, I'm going to have to live in my freaking car, and a year later you're like on top of the world, right? Like how do you, what did you do to stay in the game? Because obviously you kept hustling and doing the work. Otherwise you wouldn't still be here, be on this podcast.
It was a lot. I had to swallow my pride and I had to go get a job. I got 2 jobs at the time. I worked at, a corporate job, and I did like a night shift job while still working. Like I never turned it off. I was still doing the same hours that I was doing before. Just now I had to, suffer through the pain part of, the day-to-day stuff of having a job. And then for me personally, like I just cut out all the noise, and every morning, and I still do it for the most part, every morning I listen to about an hour of motivation, and every evening before bed I listen to an hour of motivation. Put my goals in front of me. I put my goals everywhere. Like I have papers, I have stuff on my wall, and every single day I just kept grinding because I knew it was just temporary. Like I've been there before. I've been broke before. I've been bankrupt before. So I just know, and it's just, I look at like a lot of stuff and I'm like, man, like all the businesses I've owned, all the stuff that I started, all the different stuff, it just got me to a different point. It's going to get me to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. You just never know which business it's going to be that's going to take off. You just keep plugging away.
Yep, 100%, dude. And is going through those tough times, as hard as they are, once you make it through them, and you start reflecting back, those become your greatest assets.
Yeah.
It's easy to figure out what to do. It's really hard to figure out what not to do.
And not to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Love it, man. So then, talk to us, dude, of when, again, another talking point I put in here is like working when others are not, and I think so many people that get into this game, I hear so many realtors when I ask them, like, why'd you get in real estate? And they're like, well, when we bought a house and, a realtor didn't really do a good job. I just thought I could do this, or, whatever. Like they don't get the back end components. As I was talking with one of my business partners the other day, and we're looking at some new office buildings, and he's like, man, we, feel like we're doing all the work and they make this huge commission. They don't do shit. I'm like, yeah, but it probably took them 6 months to land us as a client, right? With all the prospecting and I'm like, it's all that behind the scenes stuff that people don't see. So, can you just talk to us about like, what does that mean when you say, hey man, I'm willing to put in the work when others aren't? Like, what does that mean?
Well, for me, I run a couple of different businesses as well. I don't just sell real estate. I have a capital management company that I run, where I'm the owner. I have Amazon store that I run. I have a networking event that I made into a company that I run. It doesn't take as much effort as obviously real estate, but all those things combined. So, I look a lot at what people are doing on Instagram. Like I see a lot of people that want to be successful, talk the game, and then they're out like on the boats on Saturday and Sunday at the lake, or they're out skiing with their friends when it gets cold out, or they're out doing that or this, or, enjoying a day off. And like, for me, I'm pretty hungry and I'm ready to go. So like, I don't really have that. Like, I don't, not to say that any of that's wrong and they shouldn't partake in it. It's just that stuff doesn't excite me. Like, I don't want to spend the weekend on a boat. Like, I want to go make money. And like, that money is going to get me to a different place financially where I don't have to work as hard at some point in my life. So I think a lot of people talk a lot about how, they're going to do this or that, but yet they don't see that it's like every weekend it's out showing houses, or it's every weekend in the heat, opening up doors for people, or, people want to go to the, Cowboys are doing really well this year. So a lot of people want to go to the game. Well, a lot of times when the game is going on, like I'm negotiating deals and putting the contract together, and people don't see that. So, I mean, it's real easy to be like, oh yeah, Chris isn't working. He's just like loafing around and doing stuff. It's really not the case. Like, I'm actually pushing stuff through, and people don't see that, any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when, people are late night binge watching Netflix, you're doing digital courses, learning how to improve your Amazon, right? Or
yeah,
Facebook.
like I'm doing all kinds of stuff. It's just crazy,
Yeah.
And there's so much out there for people to do in terms of building businesses, or, assets, in terms of watching a couple YouTube videos and opening up an Amazon store, or doing eBay, or doing whatever they decide that they want to do, write ebooks. There's information overload if you decide you want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, when it comes to cause you have, your networking company, but then, when you moved to Dallas and nobody was there, and I started in a very similar situation. I just moved to Phoenix from Michigan, started, and I didn't really have, I didn't have that sphere of influence, but the difference, it sounds like, between Dallas and Phoenix is a melting pot. Nobody's from here. Everybody's coming from somewhere else. So nobody really knows anybody anyways. So, I didn't have the resistance that you do. So it sounds like you had to become a really good networker. And now running and owning a network event company, I'm sure it's a skill set that you've really honed, and it's such a powerful one for real estate agents. So can you kind of just talk through like the things that you do when you're networking and have done in the past, and knowing what you know now, how you do it today, to be effective with it? And like, what are the top mistakes that you see realtors making when they're trying to network, and advice that you give them?
Well, the thing about networking that nobody talks about is usually not the person that I directly meet, but the person after you. So it's like somebody that or somebody that's a family member, or something that, somebody that you ran into somewhere that is interested in something. So a lot of people just pitch when they go out. So like, I'm going to pitch you on how awesome my services are, or how much I closed last month, or whatever. People really aren't really interested in that. They're interested in what I can offer. So what's my network? What's your network? Maybe we can do a deal together. Hey, do you know so-and-so? So, I think the number one thing that I see a lot of people fail is not only the pitch, but also the commitment. They'll show up once every year and expect to get a ton of business. And then when it doesn't work, they like quit, which is fine. Like, I get it. But to be successful at anything, you have to continue to do it over and over and over again. And it's the same thing with networking. You have to be there all the time. You have to be the same face all the time. You don't have to know everybody's name, because I'm terrible with names, but you got to know what's going on with their life. So, like, I just got introduced to you. I know like a ton of stuff about you. Next time that I see you, I'm going to bring that up. And then you're going to be like, oh yeah, this guy actually cares. And that's the real component there, is like, I care more than, me just trying to get business from you.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like it's easier today than ever before, because of, everybody's face is glued down here to their damn self. Like, when you sit there and think about, like, when's the last time somebody looked you right in the eyes and gave you 100% undivided attention for 5 minutes, but was truly interested in you, didn't like hijack the conversation. It was just about you. And they seemed truly genuinely interested. It's like, you know, other than maybe your like spouse or your mom, you know, right? You're like, shit, it doesn't exist in my world, you know, right? So it just seems like it's easier to make people feel special, you know, right? In those scenarios, in those situations. And what would you recommend? Because you said the pitch, like an icebreaker to get the conversation going, to see, you know, because like when I network, I always look at instead of going, well, how many clients can I get out of this? You know, it's always like, how many people can I help? Right. You know, right? Because like if I want, you know, I just law of reciprocity. If I can help enough people, so I'm always looking, you know, to be the connector, to be the person that's helping. What do you recommend though, like to start the like, you know, what would a new realtor that's new to networking, like what would they even start the conversation with, and then be able to identify these people's problems to maybe see if they know somebody they can help them?
For me, I don't tell them what I do until the very end, because they usually get a lot of like interest and pique of like, who am I? So I would just start off with like, hey, I'm Chris Bentley. Like, who are you? And then go into, oh, really? Like, that's really cool. You do whatever you do, roofing, you know, you do different products on the internet. Awesome. Like, I always wanted to start that. Like, how did you get started? And then people will talk and they're like, oh, really cool. And then at some point they're going to stop and they're going to be like, hey, wait a second. Like, what do you do? And then I'm like, well, I sell real estate. And like, well, not just real estate. Like, I do a lot of different stuff, but that's really what I like to do. And like, I talk about a little bit of my story and they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. So I made more of a connection with them than they made with me. And there's a little bit of mystery. And then, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, he was a really cool dude. And then you see me again, and he's like, oh yeah, that guy's a really cool dude. You should go talk to him. And before you know it, a lot of people are talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. So then, when it comes to identifying network groups, because there's so many of them, you know, right? Like, what would you recommend realtors to start with, knowing, hey, because I mean, even like you could be a great networker, but if you're in the wrong room, like it's still the wrong room, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people go to networking events for different reasons. Some people go there for business, like me. A lot of people go there to like, you know, hook up or, you know, get a spouse or whatever. I mean, that's cool. Everybody has their different deals. I go to events that are free. I go to events that I look at, you know, who's going to be attending the event, and then I look at the venue, you know. So I look at places that are going to be classy. I look at places that are going to be well put together with a lot of people, and I just kind of go from there. And like, you know, it's sometimes they're hit or miss. Sometimes I'll go to stuff and I'll be like, God, this is terrible, and walk out. And there's be some that are like fantastic, but honestly, it's just going there and just shaking some people's hands. I mean, you'd be surprised. I've gone to some where there's like 3 people and I made friends with 3 people. And I've gone to some that are like 1,000 people in the room and I made friends with 1 person because there's just so many people. But I would stay away from like the business card exchange stuff. You know, that stuff is like truly terrible. It's like a 5-second speech about like who you are. Here's my business card. Call me later. And it's just like, you're never going to call back.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody gives me their business card, man, it's going to wind up in my Lent trap.
I actually have a big, like a grocery bag, and I've kept all the business cards I've ever gotten in that bag. And one day I want to do like a video about like how like I've collected all these business cards and like, look where I am now kind of deal. I want to see where that goes. So yeah, cool.
Love it. And then from there, dude, you know, like what do you do after, you know, right? Let's just say you go to the networking event the first time. I mean, you know, because like you just mentioned, hey, I'm going to remember something about them, you know, right? Are you going updating, taking the time to put them into your CRM, putting notes in there about them? So, you know, when you go back, okay, hey, you know, these tagged somehow of these people are involved in this group. And so when you go there next time, you know, like you can just keep that stuff fresh. Because I got to imagine at this point with everything you have going on, it's hard to keep all that stuff straight.
Well, I have a really good memory, but one thing that is great is we have social media. So as soon as I meet somebody, then I hit them up on social media, add them as a friend, and then I write like a little small message like, hey, it was really great to meet you at such and such event last night or 2 days ago, whatever it is. I try to do it the next day so it's fresh. And then, hey, you know, let's stay connected. And then I do a lot of posting, so they'll see my post a lot, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, like I met that guy. So, you know, that kind of helps. For me, it's just kind of, like I said, I'm really bad with names, but I can remember stuff that you talk about. So like, I know now that you're from Michigan. Well, now I can relate it to, like, I have a lot of friends that I know in Michigan. So I'm sure like we can talk about Michigan at some point if I met you at a networking event for a long period of time. Um, you know where I'm from, and I can talk to you about Arizona. So I can just talk, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that dude. He's from Michigan, you know, and then it'll just kind of line up in my head. So that's one way to do it. I heard like Bill Clinton used to, and he still is a big networker. He'd like flip over the card and write something like an interesting point about you and keep that card. And then he would like scan it or put it in a CRM or something like that. So he'd always like pull it back up, which was real cool.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then when it comes to social media, you know, because I know that you do a lot on social media, as you just mentioned, and have a lot of business coming from social media. And I can't fathom that there's a realtor on this planet that doesn't understand that social media is important.
You'd be
Right?
surprised.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most that I talk to, it's like,
Right.
hey, man, I get social media is important. I get videos important, but dude, they're just lost. Like they don't know what to post. And then they have this fear of like, I don't want to be that annoying salesy realtor and, you know, and just bug people and spam people or whatever. I mean, how do you like, what is your overall strategy with it and what's really working? You know, because it just continues to get more saturated, right? Our news feeds continue to just get more filled up with ads and junk. And you know, like, what are you doing right now in 2019 that's really working for you?
I don't have that mentality of ever feeling like somebody's going to turn me off or whatever, or, you know, like I'm oversaturating. For me, it's either the person's a fan or they're not. So like either you're a fan of mine and you like my stuff or not. And I kind of consider social media as kind of um, as a show, like you turn on the TV or radio or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So like you're watching a show. I follow a lot of people on Instagram because I think their lives are pretty freaking cool. So I'll watch it just like I'd watch a TV show. So that's it. So like at some point, you know, you may still like me, but at some point you may be like, you know what, like I don't want to hear that guy anymore. Like I've seen enough of his stuff already, and that's fine. Like, you know, that happens. I used to watch a lot of Gary Vee stuff, and like now, quite frankly, like I don't want to watch it anymore. It's not that I don't like his stuff or his stuff's not important anymore. It's just like I got enough. I'm overfilled with stuff from him. So I'm sure people do the same thing. I'm sure people get bored of looking at my houses or watching me do walkthroughs or videos on YouTube. But for every person that I lose, I'm sure there's more people that find me, and through that, I just, you know, find happiness because I got somebody else looking at me now. So I just push a lot through creating content. Content that I think is good, and if it's not good, then I'll know, and I'll continue to hone it because stuff gets boring, and I'll admit it. So, you know, like I'll change it up and try different stuff. You can't just try it and expect it to work for the next 10 years. It just doesn't happen in business.
And then as far as knowing if it's good, and this might just seem like a obvious answer, but I mean, are you just ranking that off of, okay, hey, how many people liked it, commented, and shared it?
Kind of. I look at like how many people are always like commenting and liking versus how many people are new and commenting and liking. And that's kind of where I gauge it on the new part of it. Are new people looking at it? Are new people deciding they want to friend me for it or, you know, send me messages off of it? Or is it just the same people liking it just because they like me personally?
Yeah. And then, you know, from there, dude, like, as far as your strategy with it, I mean, how many times do you have like, okay, hey, I want to do X amount of minimum posts a day, and then I want to have, you know, 25% work, 75% personal, or, I mean, do you have?
No, not really. I do a lot of posting of just houses, and then that's usually every day. I try to do that. And then I'll mix it up with some video, I'll mix it up with some podcasting, I'll mix it up with content that's outside of that if I find it good. So maybe it'll be like, hey, like, I don't know if you guys know, but this has been really working for me, or I've been seeing a lot of posts about X, you should really think about Y. So I just try to do like stuff that's also personal as a kind of a change of pace. But no, I mean, a lot of it is sales. So I'm just selling people on not only myself, but just my skill. And then when people find me, I've been getting a lot of hits just through Google, people just Googling my name. So then I have to show that I'm actually on the ball with, you know, posting and advertising. So when people look at my stuff, they're like, it's fresh. He posted today. You know, things are going good. that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, is this all, I mean, are you mainly doing this from your personal pages, Instagram, Facebook, or is this something that you're doing on your business page?
I have a business page for Facebook, for my companies, and I post there, but a lot of the stuff is I'm open book, so people can look at my stuff. And I like it that way because it kind of holds me accountable to not get stuck into like a lot of the riffraff stuff that's on social media. So, but yeah, you can contact me directly, through any of those. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
To be accessible to people.
Well, dude, and you hit the nail on the head earlier of when you talked about, hey, man, I follow a lot of these, big influencers on Instagram, and they just live really interesting, cool lives, and it's just like reality TV. So my mentor, Darren Hardy, that's exactly how he coined social media. He's like, it's reality TV. The difference is we all are our own stars of our own channel, right?
Yeah,
like you don't have to be the Kardashians anymore, but then you got to be intentional with, okay, like what do I want people to perceive me as? How do I, with that, it might be a successful realtor, successful entrepreneur, a good husband, good father. Like, you got to be intentional with what do you want the world to see? And when they think of you, like, what do you want them thinking and saying about you?
Yeah, and it's always real. So for me, like if I don't have content to put up, I'm not going to put up content. I know some people that do put up content that's just garbage, and like I don't, and that's fine. Like maybe that's what they want to pull up, but like I just have a different quality that I want to project. And if it's something that's not very exciting, like I wouldn't expect you to watch it. If you're gonna watch me like walk over to Starbucks to order something, I don't think that's very exciting. Versus maybe like me giving you a nugget of business, that I thought about while driving to the office or something like that may carry you through the day, or maybe some motivational words or a story that I could tell you that of my tough time that I thought about, maybe that could help you that day. Just some different stuff. That's just kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. Do you find that like when you do those kind of vulnerable posts of when you're talking about your struggles, that those seem to be the best engaged? Because I think people today just are starving and begging for authenticity and transparency, and just doesn't, somebody just try to make it look like they have this perfect life. My favorite meme I ever saw was my prayer is that someday your life actually be as cool as you portray it to be on Facebook.
Right. Exactly. For me, like I just, for the realist, I just post. And, for me, I think a lot of people forget. They forget, like I moved here with just like all my stuff packed in a Honda Fit, which I post like every couple of years. They forget that, I don't really take a whole lot of pictures of like, the dark days. You always take pictures of the great days, but a lot of people like forget that, like, I came here and knew nobody, or that I was in a car essentially, and I was about to be bankrupt. Like a lot of people forget about that. They're just like, oh, he's in a magazine today. Oh, like he did this really cool video. Oh, he's like being interviewed by, a top podcaster. Like a lot of people just like forget about that stuff. They just see it as like an update of, my life. And I'm like, no, let's turn it back a couple pages to see really where I came from.
Yeah. And then are you just like really intentional with every time you take a client, like just making sure that your friend requests them? And then, cause it's after that close, we want that repeat referral business. And if they're interacting and seeing all this content, they're not going to forget about you. Is that part of your strategy as well?
Yeah, I do. I do a closing pick. I have a bunch of them on my website, and then we tag each other in the post, and I ask for a referral at the end in terms of giving me a couple like kudos for the internet. Some people do, some people don't. Like some people are really private, which is fine, but I like that stuff because it's just validating the fact that I'm closing. I know what I'm doing. I'm an expert in my field. Let me service the next person. And it's just kind of just always doing that over and over and over again.
Yep. Love it, dude. Do you utilize any tools to help you keep this organized? Because like you're a busy dude, man. You got multiple companies, you got your team, and there's a lot of different tools that can help manage this, because you got content planning, and then obviously you have the distribution of it. Do you have any tools that you use that you like that kind of help you share, over many different mediums? Or
No, I mean, I just create once and then I kind of cut and paste and move it to different mediums because some, like LinkedIn's a little different than Twitter and Twitter is different from Facebook, and like YouTube will take some of the stuff, but you can't post other stuff because it's not video. So it just really depends on, what I'm going for, what I'm striving for that particular day. But yeah, I just change it up a lot. And a lot of it's unfortunately in my head. So when I started training my guy and my team member, the question was always, why did you do it that way? And I had to be like, well, I don't know. That's the way I've been doing it for the past 16 years. It's just like, I don't know. I just do it that way. And then it's like, let me think, how can I express it so simply that he would understand how I'm doing it and he could follow me. So it's actually made me even better as not only a leader, but like understanding why I do certain processes and how I get the results from, what I do, which is really cool.
Love it, man. So I'm really intrigued on your bounce back because it was only a year and a half or so ago where you recovered from that, tough situation that you were talking about earlier on in the podcast. But now today you've got, you're kicking ass, you're selling homes, you got your team around you. Like what did you do to be able to bounce back? I mean, you talked about getting the couple jobs and things, but how did you so quickly bounce back and build your team around you now?
Well, I just never gave up. I never stopped. I mean, I was still looking for business. I was still posting. When you're broke and you have a lot of time, like you could post a lot. So instead of me crawling into like a fetal position, as David Goggins would talk about, and like just, mentally be like, oh, like I gave up. I was like, man, like I'm not going to let this get me down. B, like I know I can sell. C, like I have the results from selling because I have tons of pictures of close clients. So like it's not me. It's just I made a mistake. So I just need to get back on that platform. And the crazy thing is, like, if you ask for help, you would be surprised how many people will help you. And I'm not talking about money or anything like that, but asking for business or asking for introduce you to other people that could be looking to buy something, or introduce you to anybody that's, maybe significantly wealthy or something that you're trying to do. And you'd be surprised how many people are trying to help you out because they were in bad situations too and they got stuck. So it's just kind of, I don't know if it's paying it forward for them or what, but they're just trying to help, just like, they probably got help too at some point.
Yeah. So then as you've been building your team and putting together your team, building the team around you, what have been some of your biggest learning experiences? I don't like to use the word failure, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really not failure until you quit. But, but things that were big obstacles that you had to learn quickly from and shift, move, and adapt with.
For me, it was more of just, not letting things fluster me as much. So like, sales in general is a very emotional game. And then you got somebody watching you and expecting you to lead by example. And you're like, you can't fly off the handle and you can't, be emotional. You have to be, okay, this is the way it's going to be. I've done this 1,000 times before. No big deal, no big deal, no big deal. And I had to really like kind of rein it in a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. So what is your, just out of curiosity, what's your team look like today?
I just got one guy.
Okay.
I know once I become a broker and have my own shop, I know it's going to be a lot more. So I'm not really worried about that. But, I've done it before. Like when I was, when I first was in the game and I went bankrupt and the financial market tanked in 2008, I had a team then and I knew that I had it in me. I couldn't get to that platform until I made, all the magazines and I won the awards and I won, I got all the accolades and stuff. So I knew that once I got all that stuff, then I had the social proof I needed to say, okay, come join me because I'm a winner and you'll win with me. And until you do that, like, you're just kind of, if I was him, I'd be like, and I didn't have any of the accolades, I wouldn't be like, I don't know, man, like, why would I learn anything from you? Like, what have you done?
Yeah.
So you need to have that before you decide to, become a team.
Yeah. Speaking of those accolades, man, and a lot of it is not necessarily just the awards, right? I mean, the awards that's the trophy. It's the nice part, but it's the reality is in order to get the rewards, you had to master the processes, right? And for you to lead others successfully, like you've got to deliver them proven processes to plug into to create results, right? And
Right.
that allows you to do that, which I love, man. So how have you, been able to leverage the best realtor in Dallas, now for the third time, to get more of your name out, get more of your brand out, like what are some things that you've done to leverage that to help grow the business?
I mean, it's just all over. I do a lot of stuff on social. I think a lot of people meet me in person, and then they realize that I'm just different than what maybe I portray online or what they see or perceive online. So I think that's really helped me out a lot, because then it's just like, oh, he's a real dude. A, and B, he's after my real intentions, which is like, I'm not going to sell you a crappy house that I wouldn't move into. And then C, like, I'm going to tell you exactly the way it is. I'm a straight shooter, so I'm not going to powder anything up. It's real life. I'm going to tell you the way it is, and like, let's go.
Yep. Yep. Love it, dude. So then, you've been in the game for a long time, man, so I'm guessing since 2004, roughly. And I got into the business 2005, and there's been so many changes that we've seen, right? With all the
Yeah.
changes that you've seen, like, I mean, how is the game different today than it was when you first got in? Like, what are some of like the main differences of how you operate now? Of course we know that you're posting on social media.
Right,
In 2004, there wasn't social media, right? But, from a overall, like how you're operating your business standpoint, I mean, are there any big differences that you're either doing now or that you see changes that were like, you see trends that are happening where it's like, all right, man, like we got to adapt to doing this thing over here?
Well, before, when I got into it, it was very cowboyish. Like, you can be a realtor and a loan officer, which I was. So I had a loan officer team and I had a real estate team. And then there wasn't, if you did some history on like the financial meltdown, you'll see that like a lot of underwriting and stuff was overlooked. And a lot of people, they had these they had account reps for like Wells Fargo and smaller banks for like Washington Mutual and Countrywide, and they would go out to the brokerages or the little shops or the little offices, and they'd go out and be like, hey, today we have like a 95-90 5-5-5 loan program where you can get 5 different loans in one deal, and like we'll take credit down to like 500, and you're like, okay, great, like what's the interest rate? Well, the first one's 12, the second one's 15, the next one's 17. It was crazy. It was a wild west. So people would come in, account reps would be like, hey, I got this loan, it's kind of tough. They missed payments on their apartment. They're first time home buyers. They have like a 580 score or less, and they'd be like, okay, we can do it. And then I'd submit it and get denied. And then somebody else would walk in and be like, hey, can you do this? And like somebody would take it and it would get sold. And that's, how the meltdown happened. But it was a very wild west. And then now you can't do that. It's either you're a realtor or you're a loan officer. You can't, a lot of the like foreclosures that happen, a lot of scams were done with that, where people would just take their money and be like, oh, we can help you, like keep your house, and then disappear. All that stuff is gone. So a lot of it's like super, super more regulated in terms of the business. The business now is also tougher because there's a lot more people in the game. There's 66,000 realtors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So, if you compare that to somewhere else, you'll see that there's a lot less people where they are. So it's a lot different. There's still cowboys out there, but they'll get exposed pretty quickly. So you can't really go out and like just do terrible deals and people accept it. I mean, it'll come back at you. So it's just different.
Yep. No, it definitely is. But it's a good thing, right? Like,
yeah. It's great for the consumer.
Yeah. Yep. For sure, man. So then, knowing everything that you know now, right? At this point and not just in real estate, but everything that you've learned from your Amazon business, all these businesses, but knowing everything that you know now today, if Chris today could go back and have a conversation with Chris in 2004 when you first started this journey and give yourself 2 pieces of advice, if you would really just to fast forward your trajectory to the success journey that you've been on, what would that look like?
I have 2, and it's the biggest, and I'll back it up with a story. So the first thing is patience, and the second thing is not to look at other people. So for me, I was doing financial services, and I was making $400 a month. And I was comparing myself to this lady in the office that was doing around $5,000 a month. And I was like, man, like I'm never going to get there. And I quit. just quit. And I looked back at it because I kept like a spreadsheet, like a handwritten spreadsheet, back home. When I went back home this past summer, I dug it up and I looked at it and I was like, man, like I'm so dumb. Like if I had just stayed with it, I was making money. It wasn't like people weren't buying anything from me. So if I had stayed with it, who knows where I would have been. But I didn't. I got impatient. I was looking at somebody else. I was like, man, I talked myself out of it, and then I quit. And it's really a really bad mental state to be in, and a really bad thing. I mean, things just take longer than normal. Like my capital management company, I'm doing great, but I don't have a lot of clients. But I know they will. I know at some point people are going to be like, you know what, like that guy's doing really good. Like I want to invest money with him. I just know. But it's just probably going to take me a lot longer than somebody else that's in the game doing it.
Yep. Yeah, I love that, dude. I mean, and we've become such an instant gratification. Everyone wants 6-minute abs. Well, that shit just doesn't exist, not in the business world, at least, right? And, so yeah, you got to play that long game, dude. So yeah, that's powerful stuff. So that was the first piece of advice. What was the second piece?
Patience and not to look at other people.
Oh, not to look at other people.
Yeah.
Now, when you say not to look at other people, and with the story that you gave, I mean, comparison can be a really ugly thing, right? And force us to get out of our own lane and whatever else. But when you say that to not look at other people, I mean, are you looking at other people to learn from and for motivation, inspiration? Have you found an effective way to do it in that manner, but then not compare yourself to allow where it self-sabotages you or gets you out of your lane?
I haven't. Like I'm super competitive, so I want to beat you. I just met you and I want to beat you, right? So that's how I am. So for me, like I'll be like, cool, like I got this sale, and then I'll compare it to somebody else. It's like, oh yeah, like I did 5 million last month. I'm just like, wow, like I'm never gonna win at this game, which is really not this. Like I'm winning right now. Like I'm not living in my car. Like I'm not bankrupt. So you have to compare it to like real factual deals versus comparing it. And I watch a lot of Steve Harvey, and I know a lot of people don't like him, and that's fine. But he talks a lot about like his journey, which was he was living in a car for 3 years, and he was bankrupt and divorced twice. And he's like, if I compared myself to Oprah money, like I would be upset with myself too, but I don't. Like he's like, I have to look at myself like Steve, like, he couldn't talk outside of his house. He lived in his car. He'd been divorced twice. He didn't really have an education, and he's up there. Anytime you turn on the TV, he's on TV. So. Yeah. It just depends on what you compare yourself up to.
Yeah, and especially in real estate, man. Like this is the only industry that I know of or ever been involved in, at least, that everybody just brag. Everybody talks about the gross, right? And which is good. I mean, you got to bring revenue in to net revenue, right? But it's like, man, I know very few team leaders doing $100 million a year in gross volume that are netting over $500,000 a year.
Right.
Right. And it's, you don't always see the reality in this business. I mean, I remember speaking on stages, this was earlier on in my career, but like, oh yeah, Joshua Smith, he's did 1.3 million last year in GCI. And I'm like, yeah, what they don't know is I'm on $100,000 of credit card debt right now. Right?
Exactly.
So people don't always hear that stuff. So yeah, what you hear isn't always the reality. And I think that's important to keep into context. So one last question for you, man.
Sure.
You talked about how, people that might post, I'm hustling, I'm grinding, but then you see them on the boat in the weekends, and how you don't, that just doesn't attract you, right? Like you like to work, you like to go out there and grow and expand and make more money and those things. And something you said, you're like, dude, I'm just hungry, right? Is a lot of that hunger and drive come from, I've got to imagine, from those 2 hours of self-development motivation that you do, the 1 hour in the morning, the 1 hour at night, that just keeps you in that state? Because it's easy to get motivated for a sprint. It's hard to stay motivated for a marathon.
Yeah, it's difficult. And there's nothing wrong with, going out on the boat or doing any of that stuff. And, everybody needs escapism. But for me, I have some lofty goals and I want to achieve them. And for me, like, I don't want to project that I'm not hustling or that I'm not working, or it's good to take some time off and do different stuff, which I do. But I think that for myself, it can also be a hindrance. Like I don't really hang out a lot. I work a lot, which I like because that's what I like to do. But a lot of people may look at that as like, man, you're killing yourself. You're working all these hours and you're doing all these different things and you're running different companies. But that's what I want to do. That's what I enjoy. If your enjoyment is going out to the lake and fishing and spending out, a day fishing, and by all means go do it. But that's my escapism is working. So for me to stay motivated like that just comes from a deep burning desire to, and it's going to sound really bad, but just to prove people wrong every single day.
Love it. Yep. I think, dude, that's something that most successful people have, man. And I mean, you look at like Michael Jordan when he gave his, I don't know, like MVP speech or whatever, like that was his whole speech. Like, thank you to this coach that didn't start me, right? And then like the whole thing was like thanking the naysayers or the people that didn't believe in him, because that gave him the fire to go out there and just crush it. And there's a lot to that. And I think it's really cool. Something that you said that was really powerful, where it's like you understand and accept that, hey man, like working is my thing, right? Like this person might love to go out on the boat or to go vacation, or whatever. I think so many entrepreneurs, it's like, I mean, most of the world doesn't understand what it's like to truly love what you do and be passionate in what you do. So they, and as entrepreneurs, like LeBron James doesn't get judged for going and dribbling on the court and practicing. But when you're an entrepreneur, you get judged for working a lot of hours, right? Even though it's your love, it's like, hey, there's no difference as a professional athlete versus what, we're doing. We love it all the same. But then sometimes like you can start to feel, guilty as an entrepreneur because of all the noise of, man, well, I should be able to enjoy this time off. Well, should you, right? Like you're out there following your heart and be able to have that clarity of this is what I want to do, right? I mean, that's got to create a lot of power for you.
Yeah, I think that's where, a lot of people don't talk about, and Gary talks about it a little bit, Gary Vee, he talks about, the suicides of being an entrepreneur, the dark side of it. So it's very lonely, like very lonely. Being an entrepreneur or a business owner, because a lot of times like you can't gravitate or understand the what's going on because you just want to work and like you want a successful company versus somebody else who wants to waste a lot of time and go out on the weekends, which is fine, like they can do that, but like for me, like I have a particular goal and that's what I want to do, but it can be very lonely. And I just accepted who I am and I accepted the loneliness and I accepted the fact that like I'm not going to get along with everybody and some of the events that people are doing or they're going to isn't going to excite me. So I just have to take that personally, ingest it and be like, okay, well, that's not me. I'm going to do me, and doing me is this. And that's it.
Yeah. And if it's like not a yes, then it's got to be a no. Right?
Right.
It's like a hell no. Yeah, right. Love it, dude. So then I'm curious, with all the self-development that you're doing for the motivational stuff, for the 2 hours a day, like what are, maybe some of the whether it's a podcast or an author or they do, and I mean, as much as you've done, I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands of different books that you've read, but is there any that seem to have had the biggest impact that you just keep going back to that you'd recommend, for anybody that's watching that's lacking that motivation, that wants that drive?
Yeah, Gary Vee, when he first started Vayner, was really good. I think that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I watch like a lot of the older stuff. I follow Jesse James, the motorcycle builder. He talks about a lot of this stuff that like, I know a lot of people just don't like him, and that's fine. But he talks a lot about like how he was like a nobody that built motorcycles in his basement and then, turned around and like he was just talking about it, I think yesterday, that he like slept in his trailer because he had to drive like 2 days down to Daytona after finishing a bike to be in the magazine, which was like a huge deal for him because everybody's looking in the magazine and then they would buy motorcycles from him. I watch a lot of Steve Harvey when he does his motivational stuff and his understanding his backstory. He does a lot of his speeches that he's done is real good. I watch some Ray Lewis stuff. I watch a lot of SEALs, like the Navy SEAL stuff, and understand what they do, which is real cool. Understanding their headspace. David Goggins has been really good for me last couple probably say 6 months, trying to understand his stuff and like callousing over the mind. So I've been really stuck on that. Like, why do I say no? Or like, why do I say that I'm not going to do something when there's, an extra couple of hours in the day? Like, why do I say that, fetal position? Like, am I really getting mentally hard on myself? Just doing a lot of that stuff, do a lot more like exploring of why I do certain things and then trying to fix it. And I think a lot of that also comes with for me, if I was in my 20s, I'd be like, I don't know what the heck this dude's talking about. But I'm in my 40s now, so it's like a little different. So you have a lot more like experience to draw back from, and you're like, oh, like why did I do that? Like why did I quit the financial services? Or like why did I do this? Or why was I so tough on that? So you just kind of like play this mental mind game, and it works, but you have to feed it, and you have to feed it the right stuff and like positive stuff.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it's like when you're 20, you know everything, and then when you're 40, you realize you know nothing.
Yeah, and you're like screwed it all up.
Yeah, nah, I love it, dude. Love it, man. So then, Chris, for those that are watching, that maybe want to follow your content, learn more about you, I'm a big believer in not recreating the wheel, right? So maybe they want to follow you on social media, see what you're posting, and be able to try to duplicate in their own market, and just again, get in touch with you. Like, where's the best places to go do that at?
My website is Chris D Bentley, like Chris D as in Danger Bentley. Same thing with Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. The Twitter stuff's probably going to be a little bit more stock based because I follow a lot of stock traders. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on Snap, but not really on it. It's more younger crowd. YouTube for sure. So any one of those, and you can message me directly or email me. It's fine. I'll answer whatever you got.
Awesome. And anybody watching, listen, we'll make it super easy on you. Wherever you're watching, listen, we're going to have links to all those right below. So you can just click and connect and rock and roll. So, and then again, those watching, listen, I know I end every podcast with this, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on it. That gives you the power to go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Chris shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learned, go out there and take immediate action. So again, you can go out there and create the life you know you want and deserve. And Chris, truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here, man. This has been awesome, a lot of fun, and it's been a huge honor. So I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, 100%. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Peace.